Whoopi is sending the message that the mainstream media is sending. I mean, she's really just slugging it out there. Remember what she said about Donald Trump? I want to play you this, and then I want to play something else for you. He just spoke to CNBC a short time ago, and I think he really helped to capture what he really is. But first, understand how they're trying to paint him. Whoopi Goldberg.
I'm going to be, on day one, I'm going to be a dictator. Who says it to you, tells you, I'm going to put you people away. I'm going to take all the journalists. I'm going to take all the gay folks. I'm going to move you all around and disappear you. If that's the country you want, you know who to vote for. If that's not the country you want, you have to make a decision.
By the way, it's so beyond crazy. One of the producers on this show, David, just a great guy, he himself is gay. He's been part of the sort of gay alliance for Trump. He was saying, look, I was just at a wedding, a gay wedding in Mar-a-Lago last weekend. Like, Donald Trump has never been anti-gay, despite however Whoopi Goldberg wants to sell it. It's just a flat out lie. Unbelievable. Oh, and he's going to round up all the journalists. Really pretty crazy stuff, especially given that it seems like the journalists are getting rounded up by Joe Biden's administration. I mean, don't forget what happened to Matt Taibbi. Matt Taibbi, who historically had been a pretty liberal reporter, he wrote politics or covered politics for Rolling Stone. He's out on his own. He managed to get the Twitter files from Elon Musk, which showed how involved the State Department was with censoring stuff on Twitter. I mean, they censored Trump. The Ayatollah, he could tweet all day long, but not Donald Trump. So Matt was about to testify on Capitol Hill before Congress, and what happened? The IRS showed up at his doorstep, at his home. I mean, is that not kind of like a coincidence of sorts? Is that not a pressure technique from the administration to perhaps stifle the voices of journalists? So that Whoopi Goldberg is actually, I think, kind of already, as far as the journalism stuff goes, already happening. I mean, First Amendment, it's out the window. We started by talking about the fire department in New York City. The firefighters can't express their political opinions because Letitia James is not going to have it, for goodness sakes. Well, Donald Trump really explained, I think, pretty well how he thinks about issues. It's what I've said with him from the very beginning. I mean, he's really actually not as left or right as some people would like to make him out to be. He's just kind of a practical guy because he comes from the business community. People in the business community tend to be practical. Here he is on a business network that I worked many years at, CNBC. He went on with Andrew Ross Sorkin this morning and kind of explained who he was, and I thought did a very good job. So let's play it.
Though, given how divided it feels this country is, I want to play you just a piece of tape from Ken Langone, who I believe supported you in the last election, who was on Squawk Box earlier, about a month and a half ago now. And I want to show you what he had to say, because I think it represents a lot of voters out there. And I'm just curious if you would react to it and explain sort of how you feel about it to the voters. Look at this, if you could, for a second.
I worry if Trump wins that it's going to be 4 years of getting even. And that's scary, because we've got serious issues coming up that need to be addressed.
What do you think of that, Mr. President? Because I think that there is a feeling that there is still an anger and a frustration that you have about certain issues.
Well, look, I've never been a fan of Ken. I have never. I don't know if he supported me. Maybe he supported me because I was the only one that he could support, because that's the reason. But I've never been a fan. I've been a fan of Bernie Marcus, a big fan, and Bernie Marcus is a big fan of mine. And that was the side I chose. And frankly, you know, he's right in one sense. People think that there's going to be revenge, and I say, no, the revenge is going to be success. There's not going to be revenge in a revenge stance. It's really going to be success. We're going to turn our country around. We're going to bring sense and common sense. You know, people say you're conservative. I'm not conservative. You know what I am? I'm a man of common sense. And a lot of conservative policies are common sense. We're not going to have open borders. You're going to have to come in legally. We're going to close up the borders. I had the best border. I had the safest border in the history of our country. And it was all he had to do is he could have gone to the beach like he likes doing. He thinks he looks good in a bathing suit. If he would have left everything in place, including the people that were doing it, I had the best border in history. We built 571 miles of wall. I got Mexico to give us massive numbers of free soldiers. Now, there's a case of tariffs. I said, if you don't give us the soldiers, we're going to put a 25% tariff on your cars. They laughed at me when I said I want 28,000 soldiers. And I like, the president of Mexico. I think he's a very good guy. He happens to be a socialist, but you can't have everything. But they laughed at me. I said, I want you to give us 28,000 soldiers on our border to stop the people that are coming in with the caravans. And they laughed at me. I said, that's okay. You don't want to do it, right? Yeah. I'm going to put a 25% tariff on all of your products, including all of the cars that you're selling. They took like we were babies, 32% of our car manufacturing business over the last 30 years. 32% is now being made in Mexico and getting bigger all the time. And now, as I told you before, with China going in, building plants there to sell into the United States, I would say to China, if you're building a plant on our border to build cars in Mexico and to sell them into the United States, I'm putting a 50% tariff on all those cars. And you know what? They would stop building their plant in about 2 months. But we don't do that. We have stupid people running our government, to be honest.
No, listen, I'm just going to tell you, he's absolutely right on that. And one of the things that he did better than anyone I've ever seen is he was willing to use trade vehicles, tariffs, to initiate policies that he wanted to see globally. Why is it that our first choice is to send troops and aid and to fight, right? Why not fight with money, with trade policy and tariffs? I mean, we're the biggest economy in the world. We carry a whole lot of might. So why shouldn't we say, hey, if you want to do that, we're going to charge you a tax. And then guess what? It's not going to be worth your while anymore. We have a ton of power. We hold all the cards. We hold all the cards. And yet no one in Washington is willing to play them or use them. And I think part of the reason maybe, I'm just guessing, because everybody's got some kind of vested interest in something else, someplace else. We have only to go back to look at the Hunter Biden consulting portfolio, right? Burisma, $83K a month. It really makes you question why we're not doing more things that are so absolutely logical. There is no common sense in Washington, D.C. He put it brilliantly. In other words, revenge is winning. Revenge is succeeding. Revenge is giving back to the people what they rightly deserve. Let's face it, you know what? Inflation's killing everyone. I've been pounding the table on this forever. I look at median incomes under the previous administration with a really good economic team. One of my former co-hosts from CNBC, Larry Kudlow, was part of that team. And they put in smart policies because Donald Trump, as a business person, understood the economy if nothing else. And he made sure that we onshored a whole bunch of capital that was sitting over in places like Ireland. Why? Because companies were like, whoa, the taxes are too high. Let me go do a shotgun marriage over in Ireland and I'll get 12% with this little tiny company over there. So they'd take their capital and they'd move it elsewhere. They'd take their jobs, they'd move them elsewhere. There was no incentive to have it here because there was no common sense approach to economics. Meanwhile, of course, every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanted to be over there in China, wanted to do business in China, cheap stuff in China. And somehow our administration for years had been okay with this. Why? Because I'm assuming the CEOs of these big corporations were lobbying hard enough that it made sense. And so no one's been looking out for the American consumer. And this is what gets me mad. I mean, I feel so passionately about it. It's one of the reasons why I created 76 Research with a very dear friend who has been on Wall Street for many years. He ran billions of dollars there in the funds that he was at. And we had been talking about this. I'm like, who's looking out for everyday investors? Because clearly the administration has its vested interests. Clearly the mainstream media has its vested interests. And clearly Wall Street has its vested interests. My friend, it's Rob Horton. And again, we've known each other for many years and have a very similar, I think, thought approach on all of this. And so we had been discussing this. I mean, I remember at one point, it was like 2020, he wanted to buy Exxon because he's running an energy fund. And he's like, I can't even buy Exxon when it was at a low because of various ESG requirements. Or say you're servicing, some investor that says, well, the US is not ESG friendly enough, so we can't buy treasuries. I mean, nutty stuff. And the reality is, this is what Americans are getting handed, right? So if you have your pension fund being run by one of these entities that has all these ridiculous rules, you're not making out as well. Or if you're watching CNBC trying to get stock picks, again, you're not making out as well. Look, I've been there, done that. I know how that all works. And they have only one incentive at the networks, and that's to get ratings. So they're not trying to help you actually invest for the long term in any way, shape, or form, believe me. Nor is effectively Wall Street, nor is the administration. So it's why I created 76 Research, 76research.com. You can get your free guide to independent investing there. You can sign up for the 76 report. You'll get some stock picks. You'll get a lot of information, perspective analysis, ideas on what's going on from myself and from Rob Horton. And you can also sign up for our model portfolios, where you'll have like 10 to 15 stock picks in each of those portfolios. And they're geared for different kinds of investors at different stages. But if nothing else, go check it out. Get the free stuff, 76research.com. Again, 76research.com. I'm super proud of it. Like, I've wanted to do this for so long. You guys have asked me for investing advice over the years. And I'm like, well, let me just make sure that I do this right. And this was the right time. We are completely independent. We have independent ideas, and the whole idea is to help you over the long run. So take charge. Let this be your first step in taking charge.